Good morning, reclaimers and demons. Today, we're back with Halo: The Fall of Reach. And, damn, we're at chapter 15. Which is about... Damn, we're getting close to halfway. I have a coffee this morning. 0 hours. July 17th, 2552. Damn, that's a time jump. Military calendar. UNSC remote scanning outpost Archimedes on the edge of Sigma Octanus system. Ensign William Lavelle scratched his head, yawned, and sat down at his duty station. The wraparound view screen warmed to his presence. "Good morning, Ensign Lavelle," the computer said. "Morning, sexy," he said. It had been months since Ensign had seen a real woman. The cold female voice of the computer was the closest thing he was getting to a date. "Voice print match," the computer confirmed. "Please enter password." He typed, "There once was a girl." The ensign had never taken his duty too seriously. Maybe that's why he only made it through his second year at the academy. And maybe that's why he had been on Archimedes station for the last year, stuck with third shift. But that suited him fine. "Please re-enter password." He typed more carefully this time. "There once was a girl." After first contact with the Covenant, he had almost been conscripted straight out of school. Instead, he had actually volunteered. Admiral Cole had defeated the Covenant at Harvest in 2531. His victory was publicized on every vid and holo throughout the inner and outer colonies, and all the way to Earth. That's why Lavelle didn't try to dodge the enlistment officers. He had thought he'd watch a few battles from the bridge of a destroyer, fire a few missiles, rack up the victories, and be promoted to captain within a year. His excellent grades gave him instant admission to OCS on Luna. There was one small detail, however. The UNSC propaganda machine had left out of their broadcasts. Cole had won only because he outnumbered the Covenant 3-1, and even then, he had lost 2/3 of his fleet. Ensign Lavelle had served on the UNSC destroyer Gorgon for 4 years. He had been promoted to first lieutenant, then busted down to second lieutenant, and finally to ensign for insubordination and gross incompetence. The only reason they hadn't drummed him out of the service was that the UNSC needed every man and woman they could get their hands on. While on the Gorgon, he and the rest of Admiral Cole's fleet had sped among the outer colonies, chasing and being chased by the Covenant. After 4 years, space duty, Lavelle had seen a dozen worlds glassed and billions murdered. He had simply broken under the strain. He closed his eyes and remembered. No, he hadn't broken. He was just scared of dying like everyone else. "Please keep your eyes open," the computer told him. "Processing retinal scan." He had drifted from office work to low-priority assignments and finally landed here a year ago. By that time, there were no more outer colonies. The Covenant had destroyed them all, and were pressed inexorably inward, slowly taking the inner colonies. Ugh. That was rough. Slowly taking the inner colonies. Clearly, you could tell I just woke up. There had been a few isolated victories, but he knew it was only a matter of time before the aliens wiped the human race out of existence. "Login complete," the computer announced. Ensign Lavelle's identity record was displayed on the monitor. In his academy picture, he looked 10 years younger. Neatly trimmed, jet black hair, toothy grin, and sparkling green eyes. Today, his hair was unkempt, and the spark was long gone from his eyes. "Please read General Order 098831A-1 before proceeding." The ensign had memorized this stupid thing, but the computer would track his eye motions, make sure he read it anyway. He opened the file and it popped on screen. United Nations Space Command Emergency Priority 1, 098831A-1, encryption code red. Public key, file, /first light. From UNSC Navcom, Fleet, HT Ward. My bad. To all UNSC personnel. Subject, General Order 098831A-1, the Cole Protocol. Classification, restricted, BGX Directive. The Cole Protocol. To safeguard the inner colonies and Earth, all UNSC vessels or stations must not be captured with intact navigation databases that may lead the Covenant forces to human civilian population centers. If any Covenant forces are detected, activate selective purge of databases on all ship-based and planetary data networks. Initiate triple screen check to ensure all data has been erased and all backups neutralized. Execute viral data scavengers. Download from UNSC TTP //EPWW Cole Protocol /virtual scav /FBR.091. If retreating from Covenant forces, all ships must enter slipstream space with randomized vectors not directed toward Earth, the inner colonies, or any other human population center. In case of imminent capture by Covenant forces, all UNSC ships must self-destruct. Violation of this directive will be considered an act of treason and pursuant to UNSC Military Law Articles JAG 845-P and JAG 7556-L. Such violations are punishable by life imprisonment or execution. End file. Press enter if you understand these orders. Ensign Lavelle pressed enter. The UNSC wasn't taking any chances, and after everything he had seen, he didn't blame them. His scanning windows appeared on the view screen, full of spectroscopic tracers and radar, and lots of noise. Archimedes Station cycled 3 probes into and out of slipstream space. Each probe sent out radar pings and analyzed the spectrum from radio to X-rays, then re-entered normal space and broadcast the data back to the station. The problem with slipstream space was that the laws of physics never worked the way they were supposed to. Exact positions, times, velocities, even masses were impossible to measure with any real accuracy. Ships never knew exactly where they were or exactly where they were going. Every time the probes returned from their 2-second journey, they could appear exactly where they had left, or 3 million kilometers distant. Sometimes they never returned at all. Drones had to be sent after the probes before the process could be repeated. Because of the slipperiness in the interdimensional space, UNSC ships traveling between star systems might arrive 500 million kilometers off course. The curious properties of slip space also made this assignment a joke. Ensign Lavelle was supposed to watch for pirates or black market runners trying to sneak by, and most importantly, for the Covenant. This station had never logged so much as a Covenant probe silhouette, and that was the reason he had specifically requested this dead-end assignment. It was safe. What he did see with regularity were trash dumps from the UNSC vessels, clouds of primordial atomic hydrogen, even the occasional comet that had somehow plowed into the slipstream. Lavelle yawned, kicked his feet up onto the control console, and closed his eyes. He nearly fell out of his chair when the comm board contact alert pinged. "Oh no," he whispered, fear and shame at his own cowardice, forming a cold lump in his belly. "Don't let it be the Covenant. Don't let it be. Not here." He quickly activated the controls and traced the contact signal back to the source, Alpha Probe. The probe had detected an incoming mass, a slight arc to its trajectory pulled by the gravity of Sigma Octanus. It was large. A cloud of dust, perhaps? If it was, it would soon distort and scatter. Ensign Lavelle sat up straighter in his chair. Beta Probe cycled back. The mass was still there, and as solid as before. It was the largest reading Ensign Lavelle had ever seen. 20,000 tons. That couldn't be a Covenant ship. They didn't get that big, and the silhouette was a bumpy spherical shape. It didn't match any of the Covenant ships in the database. It had to be a rogue asteroid. He tapped his stylus on the desk. What if it wasn't an asteroid? He'd have to purge the database and enable the self-destruct mechanism for the outpost. But what could the Covenant want way out here? Gamma probe reappeared. The mass readings were unchanged. Spectroscopic analysis was inconclusive, which was normal for probe reading at this distance. The mass was 2 hours out at its present velocity. Its projected trajectory was hyperbolic, a quick swing near the star, and then it would pass invisibly out of the system and be forever gone. He noted that its trajectory brought it close to Sigma Octantis 4, which, if the rock were in real space, would be cause for alarm. In slip space, however, it could pass through the planet, and no one would notice. Ensign Lavelle relaxed and sent the retrieval drones after the 3 probes. By the time they got the probes back, though, the mess would be gone. He stared at the last image on screen. Was it worth sending an immediate report to Sigma Octantis Com? They'd make him send probes out without a proper recovery. And the probes would likely get lost after that. A supply ship would have to be sent out there to replace them. The station would have to be inspected and recertified, and he'd receive a lecture on what did not constitute a valid emergency. No, there was no need to bother anyone over this. The only ones who would be really interested were the high forehead types at UNSC Astrophysics, and they could review the data at their leisure. He logged the anomaly and attached it to his hourly update. Ensign Lavelle kicked up his boots and reclined, once again feeling perfectly safe in his little corner of the universe. Yeah, I'm sure chapter 16 is long as shit. That's not that long. We'll read it. Oh, 300 hours, July 17th, 2552. Military calendar. UNSC destroyer Iroquois on routine patrol in the Sigma Octantis system. Commander Jacob Keyes stood on the bridge of the Iroquois. He leaned against the brass railing and surveyed the stars in the distance. He wished the circumstances of his command were more auspicious, but experienced officers were in short supply these days, and he had his orders. He walked around the circular bridge, examining the monitors and displays of engine status. He paused at the screens showing the stars fore and aft. Couldn't quite get used to the view of deep space again. Stars were so vivid, and here, so different from the stars near Earth. The Iroquois had rolled out of the space dock at Reach, one of the UNSC's primary naval yards, just 3 months ago. They hadn't even installed her AI yet. Like good officers, the elaborate artificially intelligent computer systems were also in dangerously short supply. Still, Iroquois was fast, well armored, and armed to the teeth. You couldn't ask for a finer vessel. Unlike the frigates that Commander Keyes had toured on before, the Meriwether Lewis and Midsummer Night, this ship was a destroyer. She was almost as heavy as both those vessels combined, but she was only 7 meters long. Some in the fleet thought the massive ships were unwieldy in combat too slow and cumbersome. What those critics forgot was that a UNSC destroyer sported 2 MAC guns, 26 oversized Archer missile pods, and 3 nuclear warheads. Unlike other fleet ships, she carried no single-ship fighters. Instead, her extra mass came from the nearly 2 meters of titanium A battleplate armor that covered her from stem to stern. The Iroquois could dish out and take a tremendous amount of punishment. Someone at the shipyard had appreciated the Iroquois for what she was. 2 long streaks of crimson war paint had been applied to her port and starboard flanks. Strictly non-regulation, and it would have to go. But secretly, Commander Keyes liked the ornamentation. He sat in the commander's chair and watched his junior officer officers at their stations. Incoming transmissions, Lieutenant Dominique reported. I'm not sure if it's Dominic or Dominique. Status reported from Sigma Octanus 4 and also the Archimedes sensor outpost. Pipe them through to my monitor, Commander Keyes said. Dominique had been one of his students at the academy. He had transferred to Luna from the Université de l'Astrophysique in Paris after his sister was killed in action. He was short, nimbly athletic, and he rarely cracked a smile. It was always business. Keyes appreciated that. Commander Keyes was less impressed, however, with the rest of his bridge officers. Lieutenant Hikawa manned the weapons console. Her long fingers and slender arms slowly checked the status of the ordnance, with all the deliberation of a sleepwalker. Her dark hair was always falling into her eyes, too. Oddly, her records show that she had survived several battles with the Covenant, so perhaps her lack of enthusiasm was merely battle fatigue. Lieutenant Hall stood post at ops. She seemed competent enough. Her uniform was always freshly pressed, her blonde hair trimmed exactly at the regulation 16 centimeters. She had authored 7 physics papers on slipspace communications. The only problem was that she was always smiling and trying to impress him, occasionally by showing up her fellow officers. Keyes disapproved of such displays of ambition. Manning navigation, however, was his most problematic officer, Lieutenant Jaggers. It might have been that navigation was a commander's strong suit, so anyone else in that position never seemed to be up to par. On the other hand, Lieutenant Jaggers was moody, and when Keyes had come aboard, the man's small hazel eyes seemed glazed. He could have sworn he had caught the man on duty with liquor on his breath, too. He had ordered a blood test. The results were negative. "Orders, sir?" Jaggers asked. "Continue on this heading, Lieutenant. We'll finish our patrol around Sigma Octanus and then accelerate and enter slipspace." "Aye, sir." Commander Keyes eased into his seat and detached the tiny monitor from the armrest. He read the hourly report from the Archimedes sensor outpost. The log of the large mass was curious. It was too big to be even the largest Covenant carrier, yet something was oddly familiar about its shape. He retrieved his pipe from his jacket, lit it, inhaled a puff, and exhaled the fragrant smoke through his nose. Keyes would never even have thought about smoking on the other vessels he had served on, but here, well, command had its privileges. He pulled up his files, transferred from the academy. Several theoretical papers that had recently caught his interest. One, he thought, might apply to the outpost's unusual readings. That paper had initially sparked his interest because of its author. He had never forgotten his first assignment with Dr. Catherine Halsey, or the names of any of the children they had observed. He opened the file and read, United Nations Space Command, Astrophysics Journal 034-23-01. Date, May 9th, 2540, military calendar. Encryption code, none. Public key, not applicable. Author is Lieutenant Commander Vajad, 034, service number, classified. UNSC Office of Naval Intelligence. Subject, dimensional mass, space compression, in Shaw Fujikawa, aka slipstream space. Classification, not applicable. Start file. The space-bending properties of mass and normal space are well described by Einstein's general relativity. Such distortions, however, are complicated by the anomalous, thank you, quantum gravitational effects in Shaw Fujikawa spaces. Using loop string analysis, it can be shown that a large mass bends space in SF space more than general relativity predicts by an order of magnitude. This bending may explain how several small objects clustered closely together in SF space have been reported erroneously as a single larger mass. Press enter to continue. Commander Keyes switched back to the silhouette from the Archimedes report. The leading edge almost looked like a bulbous head of a whale. The realization chilled him to the core. He quickly opened the UNSC database of all known Covenant ships. He scanned them until he found the three-dimensional representation of one of their medium-sized warships. He rotated it into three-quarters profile. He overlaid the image on the silhouette, scaled it back a bit. It was a perfect match. Lieutenant Dominique, get fleet comm ASAP. Priority Alpha. The lieutenant snapped straight in his chair. Yes, sir. The bridge officers looked at the commander, then exchanged glances with one another. Commander Keyes brought up a map of the system on his datapad. The silhouette monitored by the outpost was on a direct course for Sigma Octanus 4. That confirmed his theory. Bring us about to course 047, Lieutenant Jaggers. Lieutenant Hall, push the reactors to 110%. Aye, Commander, Lieutenant Jaggers replied. Reactor running hot, sir, Hall reported. Now exceeding recommended operational parameters. ETA? Jaggers calculated, then looked up. 43 minutes, he replied. Too slow, Commander Keyes muttered. Reactor to 130%, Lieutenant Hall. She hesitated. Sir? Do it. Yes, sir. She moved as if someone had electrically shocked her. Fleet comm online, sir, Lieutenant Dominique said. The weathered face of Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth appeared on the main view screen. Commander Keyes breathed a sigh of relief. Vice Admiral Stanforth had a reputation for being reasonable and intelligent. He'd understand the logic of this situation. Commander Keyes, the Vice Admiral said. The old schoolmaster himself, huh? This is the priority channel, son. This better be an emergency. Commander Keyes ignored the obvious condescension. He knew many at FleetCom thought he deserved to command nothing but a classroom, and some probably thought he didn't deserve that. The Sigma Octanus system is about to come under attack, sir. Vice Admiral Stanforth cocked an eyebrow and leaned closer to the screen. I'm requesting that all ships in system rendezvous with the Iroquois at Sigma Octanus 4, and any ships in neighboring systems make best speed here. Show me what you've got, Keyes, the Vice Admiral said. Commander Keyes displayed the silhouette from the sensor outpost first. Covenant ships, sir. Their silhouettes are overlapped. Our probes resolve them as one mass because slip space is bent by gravity more easily than normal space. The Vice Admiral listened to his analysis, frowning. You've fought the Covenant, sir. You know how precisely they can maneuver their ships through slipstream. I've seen a dozen alien craft appear in normal space, in perfect formation, not a kilometer apart. Yeah, the Vice Admiral muttered. I've seen that too. All right, Keyes. Good work. You'll get everything we can send. Thank you, sir. You just hang in there, son. Good luck. Fleet comm out. The view screen snapped off. Sir? Lieutenant Hall turned around. How many Covenant ships? I'd estimate 4 medium-tonnage vessels, he said. The equivalent of our frigates. 4 Covenant ships? Lieutenant Jaggers muttered. What can we do? Do? Commander Keyes said. Our duty. Begging the commander's pardon, but there are 4 Jaggers began to protest. Keyes cut him off with a glare. Stow that, mister. He paused, weighing his words. Sigma Octanus 4 has 17 million citizens, Lieutenant. Are you suggesting that we just stand by and watch the Covenant glass the planet? No, sir. His gaze dropped to the deck. We'll do the best we can, Commander Keyes said. In the meantime, remove all weapon systems locks. Order missile crews to readiness. Warm up the MAC guns and remove the safeties from one of our nukes. Yes, sir, Lieutenant Hikawa said. An alarm sounded at ops. Reactor hysteresis. Approaching failure levels, Lieutenant Hall reported. Superconducting magnets overloading. Coolant breakdown imminent. Vent primary coolant and pump in the reserve tanks, Commander Keyes ordered. I'll buy us another 5 minutes. Yes, sir. Commander Keyes fumbled with his pipe. He didn't bother to light the thing this time around. Just chewed on the end. Then he put it away. The nervous habit wasn't setting the right example for his bridge officers. He didn't have the luxury of showing his apprehension. The truth was, he was terrified. 4 Covenant ships would be an even match for 7 destroyers. The best he could hope for was to get their attention and outrun them. Hopefully distract them until the fleet got there. Of course, those Covenant ships could outrun the Iroquois as well. Lieutenant Jaggers, he said, initiate the Cole Protocol. Purge our navigation databases and then generate an appropriate randomized exit vector from the Sigma Octanus system. Yes, sir. He fumbled with his controls. He hung his head, steadied his hands, and slowly typed in the commands. Lieutenant Hall, make preparations to override reactor safeties. His junior officers all paused for a second. Aye, sir, Lieutenant Hall whispered. We've received a transmission from the system's edge, Lieutenant Dominique announced. Frigates Allegiance and Gettysburg are on an inbound vector at maximum speed. ETA, 1 hour. Good, Commander Keyes said. That hour might as well be a month. This battle would be over in minutes. He could not fight the enemy. He was severely outgunned. He couldn't outrun them either. There had to be another option. Hadn't he always told his students that when you were out of options, then you were using the wrong tactics? You had to bend the rules, shift perspective, anything to find a way out of a hopeless situation. The black space near Sigma Octanus 4 boiled and frothed, with motes of green light. Ships entering normal space, Lieutenant Jaggers announced, panic tinging his voice. Commander Keyes got to his feet. He had been wrong. There weren't 4 Covenant frigates. A pair of enemy frigates emerged from slip space, escorting a destroyer and a carrier. His blood ran cold. He had seen battles in which a Covenant destroyer had made Swiss cheese of UNSC ships. Its plasma torpedoes could boil through the Iroquois' 2 meters of titanium A battleplate in seconds. Their weapons were light years ahead of the UNSC's. Their weapons, Commander Keyes muttered under his breath. Yes, he did have a third option. Continue at emergency speed, he ordered, and come about to heading 032. Lieutenant Jaggers swiveled in his seat. That will put us on a collision course with their destroyer, sir. I know, Commander Keyes replied. In fact, I'm counting on doing just that. So I'm assuming this course of action is what gets him demoted to captain. But that's kind of based, to be honest. Anyway, that was good. It's finally getting... I guess I understand the time jump to 25:52, but kind of like... I don't know, I feel like we could have hit maybe like one more time period before we jump like, what was it, fucking over 25 years? Like 27 years we make a jump. Anyway, that's good. Keyes is a fucking G. And, yeah, see you in the next one. Shit's good as always. Like, subscribe, comment, all the same shit I say in every video. Anyway, see you next time. Peace.